Can you believe it, folks? 2018 midterm elections kick off tonight in Texas, and a record number of women are on the ballot in the state. More than 50 women are running for Congress. 110 women are seeking local office, many of them Democrats. CBS News Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, joins us now. Okay, Anthony, they're calling this a pink wave. Do you see Texas turning blue?
Texas would not be the first state you would point to think the Democrats would swing. It wouldn't be the second or the third either, quite frankly. But what you do see tonight is the kickoff, yes, as you said, of the midterm season. And you start to see the Democrats contesting places. Whether or not they'll end up winning it is months down the road. Contesting places where they haven't normally even tried. And that, I think, is going to be a big story throughout these midterms. You know, a lot of folks don't realize that often in congressional elections, there are a lot of seats. Last time around, there were more than 50 that the opposing party doesn't even bother to run a candidate. So people go to the ballots and they don't even get really a choice between the two major parties because the districts are so lopsided, right? Well, this year, those numbers are down. The uncontested numbers are down. Democrats are filing in a lot of places where we would normally consider them deep red Republican territory. Now, there are some districts in Texas, the 7th, one along the border, where we see pockets of places around Dallas, around Houston, the Democrats think they may have a shot to flip a couple of congressional districts, and those are the ones we're going to be watching.
There's so many divisions, Anthony, within the Democratic Party. How is that affecting sort of the elections across the state?
Yeah, that is a great question. It is certainly one to watch over these coming months. All of these candidates are going to be going after at least two big segments of the Democratic Party. One of them you might generally call the sort of more Bernie Sanders part of it, and that was, you know, more checks on corporate America, more looking at more of a, you know, inequality as a driving problem. And the other group is going to be your more traditional Democrats. A lot of working class voters sort of go between those two sides, but you're going to see breaks in the Democrats between those two ideas. And the other thing that comes out in the polling is we ask, would you like somebody who is going to work with Republicans, or are you going to would you like somebody who is going to try to stop Republicans at every turn? And there's splits in just those sort of broad perspectives on what they ought to do if they get into power. Those are things Democrats are going to have to reconcile going forward.
When you look at Texas, and especially this primary, are they sort of a bellwether as to where the midterms could be headed?
There are a couple of districts there. When you look at the districts, the ones around Houston, the ones around Dallas, you see suburbs. You see somewhat more affluent suburbs. That starts to tell you a story that will play out through these midterms. From New York area to California, heavily in California, I might add, you're going to see a lot of better off places that have normally been represented by Republicans, happy to send Republicans to the House, even as they trend Democratic in other races. Those kinds of upscale voters are the ones Democrats will be looking to change their minds and to flip. They're the kind of folks who nationally have been a little bit softer in their support for the administration. Democrats think maybe that's a way in. Maybe the tax bill is a way in, saying, well, you don't get to deduct as much from your mortgage. Maybe that's an argument that they'll try to make. But that's a profile of a kind of voter Democrats need, not even want to, but need to switch and swing if they're going to have a chance to take back the House.
Can I tell you something that surprised me? George P. Bush, I saw him, you know, he's running, he's on the ballot. He was so excited, it seemed, on Twitter to be getting President Trump's nomination, despite the fact that President Trump hasn't been nice to his grandfather or his dad. How important is it, and how does the president factor in?
There's a certain symbolic nature to that. You know, the Bushes obviously were opposed to, or, you know, weren't in support of President Trump when he was running in general, but as you mentioned, George P. was. And I think it sort of, for a lot of folks, it sort of symbolizes the idea of whose party is it, and maybe that's sort of big esoteric idea that we kick around in the Washington and New York, but you've got this sense of whether the Trump wing of the party is really ascendant and taking over versus the more what people label the establishment wing, which really means people who've held power and been in positions of power for a long time. That for a lot of voters, it seemed like in 2016, the Bush family anyway tended to represent, and that's part of the dynamic.
Who's winning? Can you tell from polling? Who is it? The President Trump wing of the Republican Party, or is it more the Bush wing?
The president's supporters have been the strongest by far, and they have in most of the polls outnumbered folks who push back against anything that they say is the establishment, and obviously that label can apply to different kinds of folks. But even when you ask people directly, what would you rather see, somebody for the president or somebody who's supported by the establishment, many people have said they'll go against whatever the establishment wants just for the sake of going against the establishment. So there's definitely that dynamic there. There's definitely that, what we've labeled, populism or the president's influence. And look, that's going to play out throughout these midterms, right? Where can Donald Trump campaign? His approval ratings nationally are low, but they're strong with Republicans. So can he go into these districts and say, I want you to back a candidate who is going to work with me. I want you to back a Republican who's going to work with me. And how much influence does he have will certainly be a narrative that goes across.
Anthony Salvanto, busy night for you tonight.
A little bit. It's all good. We're just getting started.
We're just getting started.
We've got months of this. This is going to